So the next speaker will be Brendan. Brendan and his wife, Marcel Paulin, own Sleepy G Farm along the north shore of Lake Superior near Thunder Bay, Ontario. Brendan is the current president of NFU Local 333, which represents NFU members across all of Northern Ontario. A strong advocate of developing regional food systems, Brendan Grant has spent 15 years building a highly productive farm in a region with significant climate limitations and a modest agricultural history. Brendan built an on-farm winter vegetable storage facility that enables the farm to wholesale and direct market certified organic vegetables to local consumers nearly year-round. Brendan asserts that farming is a professional occupation and that robust regional food systems are only possible when farmers can realize financial success with their farm businesses. Brendan believes that climate change poses both challenges and opportunities for agriculture, and the key to food security in the future is to get more farmers in the field now. All right, Brendan, I give you the floor. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much. Next slide, please. So I'm really happy to be able to join the convention today from the comfort of my kitchen. I would rather be there in person, but of course the pandemic is not making that possible. However, having said that, all pandemics have an end point, and I think that this pandemic is going to have a net positive outcome for farmers and the local food movement in our country. Just might take some time to get there. So a little bit about where I farm. We're just outside of Thunder Bay, Ontario, about 45 minutes east on the Sibley Peninsula, which is a giant landmass that juts out into Superior. I describe Thunder Bay as an urban island in the bush because there really is no urban center other than Thunder Bay that is very close to us. So Winnipeg being the closest urban center to our west, and that's 800 kilometers away. And then Sault Ste. Marie is 800 kilometers to our east. And Sault Ste. Marie is only a city of 80,000 people. So Thunder Bay is very much this kind of bubble in the woods, a full service urban center. Yeah, so we're kind of isolated. We farm in zone 2B, maybe 3A on a good day, but it's definitely not a area of the country that brings to mind farming. But there's quite a lot of dairy farming happening here, but not a lot else. We have about 100 frost-free growing days, some years quite a bit more, and on poor years a little bit less. All that, however, I felt very optimistic about starting a farm in this region because I think that any community has a need for farmers, and there's always a potential to feed those who live in those communities. So we bought a farm outside of Thunder Bay with the idea being that this urban island in the bush would probably yield enough of a market for us to squeak out a living. Next slide, please. So this picture is of the Sleeping Giant, which is the landform that is along the peninsula that we live on. The majority of the peninsula is provincial park, Sleeping Giant Provincial Park, and our farm is just 3 kilometers outside the park boundaries, hence the name Sleepy G Farm. When we bought the farm with a very set intention to start a CSA. Having worked on farms for several years prior to purchasing our farm, we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do, and it was our goal to kind of become a working model of a successful, ecologically and financially viable farm that would hopefully attract other people to do the same thing, and perhaps even recruit more farmers around us so that we could have some community. The CSA was the kind of the cornerstone of our business model. And we have grown that from 20 members to over 250, very incrementally and very measured. we've always, from the very beginning, we really have tried to take a very professional approach to our work as farmers and our interaction with the public. And of course, all of us know that farmers have to do a lot of educating to consumers because the work we do is so far removed from the work that most other people in society do, that we all have a bit of a ambassador role to play. And so Marcel, my wife, and I have always really tried to be professional in how we advocate for our industry. When we started the farm, climate change wasn't really my focus. It was kind of in the back of my mind. I was just very focused on trying to get things growing and earn some revenue. But over time, I've come to see that some of the steps we've made on our farm have helped to make our farm a little bit more resilient as the climate does change. And then this year, I'm finding that a lot of those same things that make us resilient in a changing climate are also the same things that we're relying on now during this pandemic, which is a completely different type of stress on our food system, but there are a lot of parallels that we're finding. So as I said, we started the farm almost 15 years ago, and we had this kind of idea or vision of becoming a model of a farm, a small farm that is in the modern era. And we really wanted to try and recruit more people to grow food in this community. We wanted to see if we could help be a bit of a catalyst to building a regional food system. And admittedly, a shift from an export oriented agriculture to one that is more of a regionally based food system is a long road. But in light of the current global pandemic rather, and the effect it's having on our food supply, we now feel more strong than ever that having more farms like ours and yours dotting the countryside will in fact result in increased food security for Canadians. Next slide, please. So our farm, we're certified organic. We grow about 8 acres and then about another 100 acres of hay. We run a CSA that spans the summer months and then all through most of the winter. And we have a small beef herd. We calve out about 10 beef cows as a bit of a complement to our CSA offerings and also as a bit of a soil building tool. We have 4 full-time staff along with ourselves for 6 months of the year, and then 1 full-time staff through the winter months with us. Yeah, next slide. So vulnerabilities of our food system. What concerns me most about Canada's agriculture is that although agriculture is a large contributor to our GDP, it doesn't really feed the 37 million people that live in Canada. Instead, we export the commodity or raw ingredient and then import the processed food back and then distribute through a thoroughly integrated food supply chain. And in short, it seems as though Canada, although it has the capacity to grow a wide range of foods, we tend to just produce food ingredients rather than food. And so to me, especially in light of this pandemic, where we're starting to see some stress on our food system, it has really brought that into sharp focus. And it's now very easy for non-farmers to see why it might be important to have a lot of farmers growing the food that we all rely on. So I think that the pandemic is giving us an opportunity to realize where the holes are in our food supply chain, and perhaps start taking steps towards a regional or local or domestic food system that if we build now in the good times, then we can rely on them in the bad times. And I also don't want to suggest that we shouldn't have, export agriculture is a big part of our agriculture in Canada, and I wouldn't suggest that should ever disappear, but I just think that we could take greater steps towards building a regional or domestic food system concurrently. Next slide. So I love clipping clip art off the internet because there's some funny stuff you can find. But this picture kind of depicts the position that Canada has put itself in after decades of not really supporting local food systems or making any steps towards developing a local food system, and instead being happy to rely on importing all of our food to meet the needs of those who live here. And so, that's basically putting all the eggs in one basket. And, whether during this pandemic, we're talking about access to N95s or access to food coming across the border, or access of labor coming across the border to produce the food domestically. These are real crunches. These are real pinch points in our food system. And the idea that we could spread our risk more evenly, I think has a lot of merit. So in our area, we moved to Pass Lake, just outside of Thunder Bay, to start a farm. And we've, from the very beginning, have tried to recruit more people to join us in this effort and repopulate the countryside around us with more farms. And we don't think of those farms that start up as competition per se. We think of it more as community. And going forward into an uncertain global pandemic and of course climate change, it's very foreseeable that if we have a lot of farms like this one, for instance, around us, that a 5-inch rainfall, which may be devastating for this farm and wipe out all of our spring crops, may completely miss the farm that's 5 kilometers down the road. And in that way, we're kind of spreading the risk of in that case, climate change. Okay, I think we'll go to the next slide. So it's fine and good to say that we should have more people farming, but as we all know, there's not a lot of people that are really jumping at the opportunity to work their butts off for less than pretty much everyone else in society. And of course, then there's the capital investment and the enormous amount of money required to start any farm operation. So how do we recruit new farmers? Well, if I look back at my own kind of childhood, farming was never presented as an option to me. Farmers and farming were synonymous with poverty. And I know that many of you over across the computer here are chuckling because, there is a little bit of truth to that. But, at the end of the day, if we want to have more farmers in Canada producing food for Canadians, then we need to somehow figure out how to recruit more farmers into this industry. And we need to demonstrate to them that farming is in fact a viable career choice. I'm 42 years old and I don't remember a guidance counselor in my 5 years of high school ever even uttering the words farming. So, so part of the reason I think why today farming is only kind of seen as a career choice for a very few, kind of a fringe of society, part of it is that farming has no accreditation for the trade. And that has actually kind of a net negative impact on our work. You think about all the trades that are depicted in this little picture ahead of us. You've got the guy with the wrench, who's obviously the mechanic. We've got the engineer or architect, the firefighter, judge. These are all accredited professional occupations that there's kind of there's a process by which you come into those professions. And sure, we all know, because we're all farmers, it's a process that you come into to start your farms, but there's no accreditation, which means that, there's no respect that comes along with the occupation, and of course the financial part of the career matches that. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. So something that I have always asserted, and I'm just absolutely adamant about, is that farming is not something that we've all come to because we had no other options in life. Most of us are pretty bright people, very intentional, have a broad range of skills, and we all know that the work we do, we'll go back to the former slide, if you don't mind. We know that the work we do is very difficult. Farming is a professional occupation. To me, farming is no less a professional occupation than, are the lawyers, the healthcare practitioners, and and any of the other kind of quote unquote professional occupations around us. The sheer skill intensive nature of the work we do, as well as the knowledge required to do what we do well, more than qualifies it as a professional occupation, in my opinion. If we want to recruit more people into the world of farming, then we need to elevate the work we do as a profession. We need to elevate the work we do and show that it is that not only is it important, but it's honorable and it's worthwhile and it's a challenging occupation. These are the types of things that I think would help to sweeten the pie, if not entice would-be farmers to get in the field and start growing food. Yeah, so at the end of the day, and I don't say this to sound self-righteous, but at the end of the day, farming is the most important occupation in society. There is no more important work. At the end of the day, we could all forego education and even healthcare and many of the other things that we take for granted in society. But not too many of us would say we could forego eating food for very long. And because of that, I think that farming needs to be seen as an absolutely like ground zero for occupations in our society. And I think the pandemic has helped to shed some light on that. People are a little bit scared. Everyone obviously is in these times is past growing season, growing gardens, raising some livestock, and trying to secure their own food. For centuries, farming wasn't a profession. It was just something you did so you didn't die, right? But today, there's only about 1% of us that are involved in food production, which means that the other 99% of people are relying on us to grow the food for them and meet their most basic human need. So farming became an occupation when people stopped growing food for themselves. And so as the 1% of people who do that for everyone else, I think that we owe it to ourselves to kind of toot our own horns. And farmers are actually kind of bad at doing that at times. And I think that's a conversation we need to have more often. Next slide, please. So why should food be cheap? Well, it shouldn't. It's too cheap already, and things are certainly changing every time I've gone to the grocery store in the last couple of years for sure. The price of food is going up and up and up. And, I walk out of the grocery store with a smile on my face because I see that we're starting to close the gap a little bit between the cost of food and what it actually costs to produce it. The idea that food should just be cheap and that it's produced by these country bumpkins, these uneducated, unsophisticated people, and it comes from the dirt, so it's of no real value. To me, I reject all of those notions, and I always come back to the idea that we are professional practitioners of what is, quite frankly, the most important occupation in society. Lawyers, healthcare providers, contractors, and consultants, they don't work cheap. So why should farmers? I mean, how many of you have had, a contractor come to your home to fix your furnace, and we're never surprised when we get a huge bill because they, of course, are professional in their field, and that's what it costs. So I think I'm drawing a little bit of a dichotomy between the work we do and the work some of these other professions do. And, at the end of the day, a person who's gone to trade school to become, say, an electrician, 4 or 5 years into their job, they pretty much know everything there is to know. I know that there's not a single person on this conference right now who's been farming for even 40 years who thinks they know everything there is to know about farming. It's just that complex of an occupation. And for that reason, I think it deserves an awful lot of respect. Because at the end of the day, if growing food was easy, then everyone would do it and we wouldn't need farmers. And anytime that we as farmers fail to stand strong with our pricing and actually price our products, if we're direct marketing based on the cost of production, we're just subsidizing other people's grocery bill. Farmers are not among the wealthiest people in society. So it really doesn't make sense that we should be charitable in our pricing of our goods so that other people can have more disposable income. Okay, next slide. So, right now, we kind of have the mics. We have the microphone because people are scared. This pandemic has shook the entire world. It has exposed vulnerabilities in our food system and other supply chains that we rely on. And suddenly the work that we as farmers do has been brought into focus that, if they shut down the border, can we get food across and into our grocery stores? People are on edge. And I think that now is the time for us as farmers to speak up and to do a little bit of self-promotion, but also to advance our occupation. Because again, at the end of the day, I think the goal is to recruit more people into the world of farming. I don't feel comfortable knowing that Canada can only feed itself by importing food from other countries. We have the capacity in Canada to produce the food. Hell, I'm producing tons of food in an area of the country where if you open up your agricultural textbook, it tells you can't grow anything. And obviously that's not true. So we have the capacity to do it. I really want to see Canada take some serious steps towards building this food system and putting more farmers on the ground so we can actually feed ourselves. Next slide.
Brendan, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to bring you back to the time. We have another speaker, so hopefully you can wrap it up in a couple of minutes.
I think I can.
Thank you.
So local food systems, again, I don't want to suggest that we should abandon all of our agriculture exports, but local food systems are something that can work. And in fact, this past April, the 3 Safeway stores in Thunder Bay, and Thunder Bay is a city of about 110,000 people, had no access to any carrots through any of their vendors except from us. And so, orders all of a sudden overnight, just went through the roof with them. And this little farm that we have here was producing food for our CSA members, as well as the grocery stores in Thunder Bay during that time when there was a crunch. Next slide. I think I have just 2 left. Okay, so this is a great little graphic. We've all seen this. This is about our food production and supply. We produce it, we process it, we distribute it, we access it, we consume it, and we recover the waste. This is a sustainable food system. It's a beautiful little graphic, but quite frankly, it doesn't really mean anything if we don't have the production capacity. Production capacity domestically, I think, is ground zero for any conversation around food security. I think that any conversation about food security without addressing production capacity is just merely an academic exercise. I really think that, and this I know is not a presentation on food security, but this is obviously something that we all know well and we hear about often. We need more farmers to produce food that people around us eat. And when we do that, then we're going to be more food secure. Next slide. This is the last one. So how do we get people on board and get more farmers out in the field producing food? We need to advocate for ourselves to help elevate the profession. We need to recruit new entrants and show them through our own examples that this is not a dead-end career and that you can make a living doing this work. We need to mentor them and help them succeed because success breeds success, and we want to see people succeed in this. We want to make sure that we're able to compensate ourselves fairly for the work we do. And we need ongoing government investment. So that can take any shape or form, but we need the government at all levels to realize and recognize that farming is important and that anything they can do to support more farmers is a step in the right direction. Okay, thank you.